Hello, everybody. I look awfully dark. Why do I look dark? I look dark because I forgot to bring the lamp over. All right, let's go get the lamp. I'm gonna set up the Facebook. Going live on the Facebook first here. Hold on. Stand by to go live on the Facebook. Stand by. Going live. Oh wait, can't just push the button. Gotta type in a thing. All right. It is Michael Whitehouse live. Not love. Live. Nope. Gotta turn on the Wi-Fi for this to work. It's not gonna work otherwise. Because T-Mobile is really having T-Mobile is kind of like having a cordless phone. In terms of how well that works. Because the network for T-Mobile is awful. Sorry. Great thing about recording like this is, of course, you can only see me from the waist up, so you have no idea. Wait a second. Why is this not doing this thing? I'm going to make a bad joke. I need to make sure people can hear me. There we go. Hello, everybody. Live on Facebook, live on YouTube, live everywhere. Need to bring a lamp over because while my phone has a good camera, the computer does not, and so I need light over here. Otherwise, you can't see my face, and that's bad. So I'm gonna go get a lamp. And the great thing about being on this kind of thing, you only see me from like the chest up, so you have no idea I'm not wearing pants. Just kidding, I'm wearing pants. They're not tucked in, but you know, it is what it is. Don't complain, it's free. Okay, now I'm gonna try not to injure myself. Plug this lamp in. The superficial cardio binders are on the floor where I want to put the lamp. There we go. And we got someone watching. Sorry about that. Okay. And we're here. We're live. You can see me now. So, welcome to, get this adjusted here. Welcome to watching Michael Whitehouse getting everything ready for his show, which is always the first and possibly best part of the show. Maybe. I think I need to put something under here to make it higher. And I just turned the camera off on YouTube with this box. Like a winner. Okay. And once again, I'm allergic to being recorded because my nose gets itchy. These are very versatile things. They're the boxes Concardia cards come in, but they are also all the same size and they stack nicely, so always be ready to improvise when necessary. Because that's how we roll. And it's like a behind the scenes show, right? It's like a making of. I've heard people like that kind of stuff. Here's to hope you like it, because that's what you're getting. And if you don't, well, I'll give you your money back. There we go. Okay, we're set up. We've got some topics tonight. I have 3 topics, which is not actually enough to fill the time. So I'm open to your comments and questions. As always, that's why we use live, so people can interact. But the topics that I do have ready are networking your next job, why I spent an hour with a prospect, and how to advertise effectively to people using ad blockers. Hopefully the person who asked the third question is here or will be here by the time I get to it. So I'm going to start by talking about networking your next job. This is not in response to a specific question, but it's in response to some conversation I saw online. There are some people who have difficulty finding work in America. Most people, actually. Most people have difficulty finding a good job. Some people are lucky. Some people have found the job they want. Some people are in a position where they can leave a job and be confident that they're going to be able to get another one. But most people in America are not so lucky. and they live in fear that they will lose their job, and if they do lose it, that they will have no way to get a new one. And I talked to a lot of people who have been looking for a job for a very long time. Months or weeks or counteroffer? I do not understand, James, what you mean by needing to write a counteroffer by tomorrow. But if it's counteroffer like you've been offered a job, then you're ahead of a lot of the people that I'm talking about. And so you may not need this particular advice. So you're probably in good shape if you've been offered and you just need to counteroffer. But there's a lot of people I talk to who say, you can't just find a job, and I've been unemployed for this long. And there's some people who say, well, it's because your standards are too high. You're not willing to be a janitor or work at McDonald's or whatever. But, some of these people have master's degrees. And if you have a master's degree, yeah, you probably shouldn't be a janitor or working at McDonald's because you got education. The thing is, there's an old saying that is not what you know, it's who you know. And this is often used to explain not being able to do something. I can't get a job because not what you know, it's who you know. I know how to do the job, but I don't have the right connections, so that's what it is. I can't get it. I wasn't born lucky. I wasn't born knowing the right people. Well, here's a secret. Unless you're Rowan, who was born knowing about 100 people who watched the minute-by-minute account of her birth, most people were born not knowing anyone. I mean, you had your mom and your dad, but you still didn't really know them because you were a baby and you didn't even know that your hands were separate things. You just used them together. It took Rowan quite a few months before she realized she could move one hand separate from the other hand. So you're not born, no one's born knowing people. Now, you can grow up well connected, but even then, a lot of people who grow up connected end up not actually being able to leverage those connections. So it's a fallacy that there are some people who have so many connections and that their parents just kind of point them in the right direction. And are there some people whose parents guide them along? Yeah, like Chelsea Clinton, pretty well set. Wasn't ever a chance she'd be flipping burgers. Nothing against flipping burgers, but not a job that she's going to be doing as a career. Because I think she works for the Chelsea Clinton Foundation or something. So that's kind of like being lucky with the birth lottery. And once again, I'm allergic to being recorded because my nose gets itchy. So awkward. But unless you're Chelsea Clinton, then chances are that you're like everyone else and have to make your own connections. Here's the good news. The people that you need to meet are not hidden on a mountain somewhere. They're not in a walled compound. They are not in a secret government facility of well-connected people where no one can find them. They're just people. They're walking around. Important people are walking around just like regular people. And they don't even know they're important. Just like dead people. Dead people will probably not help you get a job, but depending on what the job is. So, strategy. Now that I've pontificated about what it could mean and how you could know people. Strategy to get your ideal job. Step one. When I use Hangouts, I can put stuff on the screen. Now I can just hold my finger up. Step one. The first step is to know what you want. So some people, you say, what are you looking for in the job? They say, I want a job. Great. What kind of job? One that pays money. Okay. Pretty sure McDonald's is hiring. Good luck. And if that's all you want, go get a job that pays money. But probably you have tighter specifications than that. You probably want to make a specific amount of money. You probably want to work in a certain field. You want certain skills. Or you have certain skills. You're looking for certain opportunities. So first you need to write all that down and know what you're looking for. 2. You need to get into your head that somewhere there's someone who can make the connection for you to get you the job you're looking for. You may not know who the person is. You may not even know the description of the person, but the person exists. There is someone somewhere who, if they really liked you, could hook you up with the job that you want. So you need to find this person. How do you find them? Legwork. Not like working out on a bench press, leg press. Actual leg work, like walking around. See, I got special effects and everything. See, walking. So, actual hitting the pavement. One problem that people fall into when they are job hunting is it's very easy to get busy when you're not working. Busy doing things that aren't productive, or are productive, but aren't making money. Oh, I got time to work on my project. Oh, I can do this. Oh, I can catch up on Game of Thrones. Oh, whatever. If you are looking for a job and you seriously expect to find one, that needs to be your job. If you are working, you're probably working 40 hours a week. I work 60 hours a week, but I'll let you get off easy with 40 hours a week. You should be looking for a job 40 hours a week. If you're looking for a job 40 hours a week and you can't find one for 2 years, if you can put in 4,000 hours and fail to find a job in 2 years, apply for disability, because you probably got one the government will recognize. What's most likely happening is you did not put in 4,000 hours. What probably happened is you thought you put in 4,000 hours, but you really put in about an hour or two a day, because so many people, oh, I've been looking so hard for a job. Well, what'd you do today? Well, I went on Indeed and I sent out 8 resumes. Well, that takes about an hour. What did you do for the rest of the day? So you've got the time. You've got 40 hours a week to find a job, let's assume. If you have a job and you're trying to find a better one, it's a whole different thing. But you can probably extrapolate the strategy. So you start basically cold calling. You need to find the person who can find you the job. So find everyone you can who is in a related field to the field you want to get into. The example I use, and I'm basically intellectually lazy, so I'm going to use the same example again that I used before. I was talking to someone who's trying to get into the funeral industry. He wanted to be a funeral director. Now, I don't know anything about the funeral industry. I've never been a funeral director. I do not know any funeral directors. Although there is one named Stephen King here in Mystic, which is just a fun fact. But so you need to come up with, figure out everyone who is related to that industry. So funeral directors, obviously. Maybe office managers of funeral homes. Medical examiners. Morticians, are those the same as funeral directors? I don't know. You'll figure it out. Police, firefighters, EMTs, grave diggers, grave robbers. Maybe. And go find 10 of these people a day and go talk to them. Your goal is to set up a meeting, to sit down with them for 30 minutes. You are not trying to get a job from them. You are trying to get their advice. You're going to say to them, I'm really interested in the funeral industry, and I imagine that you know something about it based on your field. Could I sit down with you for 30 minutes and basically share your knowledge? Could you educate me a bit in what you know? Now, some people are going to say, no, I'm too busy, or no, you're a weirdo, go away. But most people are going to be flattered. They're going to say, you want my knowledge. You just want me to teach you something? You want me to tell you what I know? Okay, sure, sounds great. People like to talk. Most don't like to talk as much as I do. But most do like to talk, and when respected for their knowledge, you're generally going to say, yeah. Now that you mention it, I do know quite a bit, and I would be happy to share it all with you. So you repeat this process. You talk to 10 people a day, 5 days a week for a month. You have now talked to, 200 people. Let's say half of them accept your invitation to actually sit down and meet with them. That's 100. You have now spent a half-hour conversation speaking to 100 people. If out of that 100 people, no one can point you in the right direction, then either you're barking up the wrong tree or you're just really uncharismatic. Because probably one of them, or a few of them, are going to introduce you to someone else. You're going to say, hey, you should talk to? You should talk to John, because he knows way more about this than I do. Then you call up John and say, hey, John, I was referred to you by your friend Sue. She said that you were very knowledgeable about the funeral industry, and that's something I'd really love to learn about. Could I, get 30 minutes of your time to share your knowledge? You're eventually going to find the person who can help you. Find the person who can either give you the job or introduce you to the person who can give you the job. Now, because you're talking with them and you're getting them on your side of the table and you're asking them for their help, they're going to feel like they're part of your team. A lot of people like to solve problems, especially when you put the problem right in front of them. So now they're on your team, if they're able to solve the problem, see, if you sit down with me and say, I really want to be a funeral director, I'm going to try to come up with ideas for you. But if I knew someone who could hire you as an intern, or if I could hire you myself as an intern and get you on the first step of the road, well, that would be a really easy way to solve your problem. I can just solve it. And since I've gotten invested in your problem by spending 30 minutes telling you everything I know about what I think you should do, I'm fairly likely to do that. So over the course of a month, you talk to 100 people. One of them is going to give you that connection. One of them is going to give you advice. And also, you're just getting the momentum. You've got 100 people who say, wow, this guy is a real go-getter. He's going all over town asking questions. I talked to my friend. My friend says he talked to him. My other friend talked to him. My boss says he talked to him. And, name's going to get out there. Someone is going to offer you something because someone wants that kind of tenacity on their team. This is how you get a job. I have now given you the secret for getting a job. So no more excuses. Okay, the only excuse, if you have a health excuse, then that's valid. If you are otherwise healthy, no excuse. If you have 40 hours a week, you should be able to find a job and a good one. So that is my advice. I personally, all of my jobs since, when I worked for Gaming Etc., I found that one through the internet, but leveraged my experience and got it pretty easily. But other than that, I think pretty much since 2012, 2011, something like that, they've all been through some form of networking connection. I haven't sent out resumes. I found out about an opening. I've sent an email or made a phone call or walked in and talked to someone and gotten the job in that way, because that's how you do it. If you have questions about this, put them in the comments and I'll answer them right now. Or if you're shy or watching this recorded, send me a message and I'm happy to tell you more about it. I will be the first person of the 100 people that you see this month and figure out how to get you that job. Next, topic number 2. I have blocks with numbers on them, which would be super awesome right now to have those, but alas, I do not have them handy, so no big 2 to hold up. Sorry. Yeah, you'd think like numbers and letters would be a thing I could produce, because I have Rowan who's 21 months old, and we have numbers and letters all over this house, everywhere in this house except for within arm's reach. But within arm's reach, I do have a cow dressed as a cowboy. I got this at the Retail Qualification Championship. Only the top 20 people, top 20 Volkswagen salesmen in the country, were invited down to Dallas, and one of the things they gave us, in addition to armadillo milk, which I never opened, is this rodeo cow. Yeah, I know you're jealous. I just saw someone log off. They're like, oh man, I'm so jealous. I can't even watch this show anymore. Rodeo cow. I wish I had one. Okay, next topic. Why I spent an hour with a prospect. So this happened, obviously. I'm going to leave the names out of it to protect the innocent. But I will often meet with people for a fairly long period of time, longer than seems strictly necessary to make a sale. Some of these people I don't even sell, but that's okay, because it builds the relationship. And sometimes my boss and I have conversations about why I'm spending so long. There's people are, why spending an hour with this person? I mean, unless they're going to be a tremendous customer and put in a huge order, huge. I don't know where that huge or the Y thing came from, but a huge order. Why would you spend that much time with them? To which I say, how am I going to get them to put in a huge order if I'm just some guy off the street? If you're going to be placing a very large order, or you're going to be committing to a long-term connection, you kind of want someone you know and trust. You want a friend. You don't just want some guy who came in and said, okay, what do you need? Oh, you need 1,000 business cards. You need some brochures. Yeah, great. All right, got it. Yeah, I'll get you some information on that, and we'll go from there. You want someone you know. So sometimes important to put in the time with a prospect. Now, prospect, you don't know anything about this person yet. Hopefully, maybe you've done some research, maybe you found out. But if there is someone that you're looking to develop as a customer, or develop as a what's called the center of influence at one of my sales trainings, someone who will introduce you to other people, you need to build that connection. You need to build the relationship. They need to know you. They need to know they can trust you and know that you're not just there to get their money and move along, because they are investing both their money, and if they're going to be referring, they're investing their reputation in you. So that means talk to them not only about their needs and doing a full proper needs analysis, as I discussed, but also just talking with them, like a person, like people talk, like this, except hopefully they talk back and you don't just monologue for an hour. If you monologue for an hour, you're doing it wrong. Don't monologue for an hour unless you're on Facebook Live and Hangouts and people can't respond. You can respond, by the way. You can comment. And we see 2 more comments are good. Lets me know you're listening. Maybe you're not listening. Who knows? but you need to talk to them. You need to put that time in, and it will happen sometimes that you will put all this time in with someone, and you will make them a friend, and they will call you a friend, and they'll buy from someone else. Happens. Actually happened to me recently. Yay, James is listening. Thank you, James. It happened to me recently. There was someone, I sat down with her for an hour, told her all about how to use YouTube, how to use a Facebook page. She set up a Facebook page based on the instructions that I provided. And I didn't explicitly say, like, I'm going to give you a lot of free advice that a social media consultant would charge you $100 an hour for in exchange for you purchasing your printing from me, but it's implicit, maybe it's implied, maybe it's not. And she ended up printing somewhere else. She found the other printer worked better for her in the way that they operated or something. I wasn't entirely clear on why she made that decision, but it happens. And I'm not going to be upset about it. I'm not going to, turn my back on her when I next see her at a networking event or whatever, because that doesn't do me any good. Am I disappointed to lose the sale? Yeah. Am I upset? The relationship's still there. Maybe she'll refer me to someone else. Maybe she'll make an introduction for me at some point in the future. Who knows? But a good salesperson, especially someone building a sales career or entrepreneur or any, I'm just going to take out the sales. A good person is not looking at everyone they meet for short-term gain. What can I get out of you right now? In the next hour and a half, how can I squeeze all the value from you? What do you mean there's no value? What do you mean you're not buying from me right now? Well, hell with you, on to the next person. That's not a good salesperson. That's not a good person. A person who looks at another person as a thing that they can take advantage of and get value out of is not a person of high moral character, I would say. So, ideally, do my relationships turn into business, which turns into commission? Yeah, that would be great. But if it doesn't, that's okay. Not a big deal. There are some people who I've helped out in considerable ways, helped fund their projects, sponsored their projects, given money to, sometimes you give a friend money, you buy something from them just to help them out, even if it's not really something you need. And then when I've gone to see if I could get their business, they've said, I can get it cheaper online. Happens. Now, not someone I'd go out of the way to help again when they do that. And on the flip side, there are people I have very good relationships with who don't, check 6 prices after they get a quote from me, because they trust that I'm not taking advantage of them, because we have that kind of good relationship. And what's good about having that relationship with a vendor, obviously having that relationship with a customer is fantastic. That makes things much, much easier. But the great thing about having a relationship with a vendor is, are there some who are going to be less expensive than me? Sure. Some are more expensive too. But there's more to it just than price. If someone comes to me and says, listen, I'm getting all my stuff from you, let me know what it's going to cost. If it's too much, I'm not going to do it. If it's 50% less somewhere else, great. Okay, yeah, do that. I'm not twice as good. But there's going to say, I'm going to need this, and this, and I know you're going to take care of me, so just treat me right. It means that the customer doesn't have to worry about, I'm getting this from here, I'm getting that from there. Are they going to take care of me? They can trust me to take care of them. And it's more than simply money. There's all kinds of other factors, time, effort. I can remind them, hey, don't forget about this thing. I think when we talked 6 months ago, you said you wanted to get these things also. Oh yeah, I almost forgot about those. Especially when dealing with events, you're up against deadlines. You miss a deadline, you're not ordering that thing. So it is good to be able to not have to worry about quibbling over price, because when you get down to it, your quibbling is probably within 10%. You go out and get 6 quotes. You're going to get 6 quotes within 10, 20% of each other. It's not actually that much money, but it can be tremendously valuable to have the trust and not have to worry. So as the salesperson, trying to establish that trust in the first place with a stranger. Hello, Melissa. Thank you for joining us. It's okay. You only missed the stuff about how to get a job, which you already have a job, so you're good. So welcome aboard. But when you're trying to develop a prospect into a friend, it is so worthwhile. And even if they don't buy, even if you spend an hour with them and they don't make the purchase, and they buy somewhere else, you've still put the time in, and they know you put the time in, and they know you put the time in, and then they purchased elsewhere. So knowing that, like, the relationship can grow stronger as long as you allow it to do so. And perhaps they'll make an introduction to you in the future for something else, for another sale, for another job, for something for your kids. Who knows what a relationship can grow to offer you. So that's topic number 2. Now, topic number 3. Ooh, I can just use this. Let's see if I can do this special effect. All right, topic number 3. Am I showing a 3 there? 3. It's a 3. See? Special effects. Topic number 3. How to advertise effectively to people using ad blockers. Someone specifically asked about this question because she uses ad blockers on Facebook, so she doesn't see Facebook ad blockers or Facebook ads. They are blocked. So she's saying, like, how do you advertise to people who are using ad blockers, who are using this technology to avoid seeing your ads? I talked before about how Facebook can be very effective. You can spend a small amount of money and be seen by thousands and thousands of people. But what about people who use ad blockers? Well, I'm going to give you a simple and pedantic answer. They're not going to see your ad. And that's okay. When you are advertising, when you are marketing to the masses. All these arm motions are great, but you can't actually see my arms on Facebook. But you will be able to see them on YouTube. So when you go see the YouTube video, you'll be like, look, he has arms. Fantastic. When you're marketing to the masses. So if there are some people who don't see it, they don't see it. I don't watch TV. I don't have cable, so I very rarely see TV commercials. It's not really a problem for the advertisers because they advertise to people who do watch TV. For a while, I didn't listen to the radio for months on end. I didn't hear radio commercials. It's not a problem to the people who are advertising because lots of people do listen to the radio. That's why if you're trying to get certain markets, just make sure that the market you're targeting is the market that actually listens and pays attention to the medium that you are advertising in. So I do not think, although I have not researched extensively, I don't think ad blockers are terribly common for things like Facebook. Also, Facebook is, I imagine, fairly good at getting around the ad blockers, although I could be mistaken, because they are making advertising more and more native. And that's a trend that is occurring. It started with the invention of VCRs, when you could record and fast forward through the ads. And keep in mind, this was back in the 80s. There were people saying, oh, this is going to destroy television. Nobody watches ads anymore. people they're just gonna record the TV and record the show, fast forward past the commercials, and the advertising industry will be destroyed. The entire advertising model of television is doomed, and commercial television will, cease to exist as we know it. This was the 80s. Commercial television continues to exist, still there. But the response to it was to push the messaging into the programming to make it more native. So, how do you do that? Well, with big brands, instead of the character drinking cola, white can with the red letters, block letters that just say cola, they'll actually drink a Pepsi or a Dr. Pepper or a Coke. And some people say, oh, you lose the artistic integrity because now it's being bought. Dr. Pepper paid $7 million for the main character of this show to love Dr. Pepper. But, you probably have favorite sodas, right? Like, if you really like Dr. Pepper, you drink Dr. Pepper. And, like, in a can that people can see. So why do TV characters not have favorites? And, yeah, it's an arbitrary decision story-wise as to which one it is, so there's no reason why it can't be something that's bought. So, it makes sense that you move that in, and you can do it. It has to be scaled to the medium. If you're a 2-person business in Connecticut, you're probably not going to get product placement on a national TV show. But what you can do is you can work with, say, famous YouTube personalities or people who are social media and they have a decent following. You can pay them a modest sum of money to talk about your product. Either embedded in, podcasts do it all the time, and they just kind of work it in. It's this podcast is brought to you by so-and-so, and let me tell you a bit about them. The show that's on right before me on WBLQ on Wednesday mornings, I don't know what it's called, but it's a health show. She's sponsored by a spa, and she does a fantastic job just integrating it as if she's giving a review of it. Oh, I really love this spa, and they do this, and they do that, and I was just there the other day, and they did this treatment for me, and it felt great. And you can tell it's a paid advertisement, but it feels very organic. Paul Harvey was very good at this, that he'd just kind of like be talking, and you wouldn't notice until he was done that he just pitched you something. And now you have a fairly favorable impression of that product. It's probably a paid endorsement, but it didn't feel like that. That's really where advertising is going, is to native, organic feeling advertising. That's why so in order to get me to endorse something, it's going to take the application of money. But if you send me money, I will say that, James. Not even much. Just PayPal me something. Let me know. Yeah, like 20 minutes left. I can totally be paid to endorse things on my show. But so that's why Facebook is putting the sponsored ad, the sponsored posts. What's it called? They're called posts. Yes, I'm practically an expert. The Facebook snaps, tweets, whatever they are on Facebook. That's why they're in line with the rest of your newsfeed, because they show up. And the thing is, the way Facebook's algorithm works, I am as likely to be interested in a sponsored post as I am to be interested in an organic post, in a post that someone actually just put up there. Because some people on Facebook post a lot of crap. I'm one of them. So there's lots of stuff on there that's not super interesting, and thumbs up. So on Facebook Live, when someone gives me a like or whatever, it shows up in the corner of the screen here, or the screen right there. But it's their icon, and then it's the thumbs up. So I just saw a dinosaur appear in the corner of my screen, and I was thinking that perhaps Facebook had added a 6th or 7th interaction in addition to the thumbs up and the haha and the angry face and whatnot of a dinosaur, but they didn't, and I don't think they should. So I was a little freaked out as why someone dinosaured me. But now I understand it was James giving me a thumbs up, so that's cool. And it never gets old to see a little thumbs up drifting across the screen. But that's it's by seeing those organic posts, you look and you're like, okay, so Facebook served this to me knowing that my interests, I mean, you don't think through this process, but they serve it to you knowing that your interests match up with what the person's paying to, the audience, the advertiser is paying to be heard by. So decent chance you'll be interested. As I said, I see all kinds of ads for speaker programs, sales training, that kind of stuff. Things that are conceivably interesting. Whether I want to spend the money on it or not, maybe not. But I saw something. Brian Tracy's offering a program for $7. I'll pay $7 for Brian Tracy. That seems like it's probably worth it. Now, it might be a program where it's Brian Tracy talking about why I should pay $1,000 for his next program. But, it still might be worth checking out because that's what it shows me. So, in my opinion about ad blockers at this point, actually, I've never used an ad blocker because I feel like it creates a much more of an opportunity to miss out on things than to, much more likely to miss out on things than to avoid, increase my life by avoiding ads. But I have a question. The question is, given how much curated content, news posts, adverts, things our friends like, we're now being thrown, does it break down our tolerance for things outside of our comfort bubble? Does it break down our tolerance for things outside of our comfort bubble? So you mean, does it make us more likely to be, does it make us more insular or more open-minded? Is that what you're asking? I think it's what you're asking. That's what I'm going to take it as. And while I wait for the 40-second delay until I get an answer to that question, I'm going to start talking. So Facebook has actually changed their algorithm. Saying Facebook changed their algorithm recently is like saying the sun came up. Are we more insular? Echo chamber effect. Okay. So Facebook recently changed their algorithm because Facebook loves interaction. Facebook wants you to spend as much time as possible on Facebook. I read an article recently that said Facebook is moving towards the AOL model. The thing that lies over the internet, so you don't have to go into the internet. You sit on Facebook all the time, and it will serve you everything you need. That's why it's having native videos, native photos. They're starting to get to native news very soon. So you can go onto Facebook and never actually leave Facebook. So what makes you? Is there anything that makes you come back to Facebook more than seeing a notification on your phone? No. Facebook's not being AOL in the sense that they're dial-up. They're being AOL in the sense that they are the internet over the internet. There's a special term for it. I can't remember what it was. I sound really smart when I'm just talking and I'm like, yeah, there's a word for that. I don't know it, but there is one, and that's your homework. Look that word up. But so basically the content provider, you're not going out to whatever.com. You're just on Facebook clicking that. And then you click back. And actually, if you look at the mobile app, at least on the Android, I think the iPhone is the same way. On Facebook, if you click a link, then you'll go to the Facebook browser. So you'll be looking at the page in Facebook, and when you're done with it, you click the X in the corner, and you go back to Facebook, because you never actually left Facebook. You've been there the whole time. Facebook inception. So Facebook wants you on Facebook all the time. And there is probably nothing that is more likely to bring you back to Facebook than seeing a notification on your smartphone or computer that tells you that someone is wrong on the internet in a thread that you're a part of. So the thing that's going to make that kind of disagreement occur is to make you see things you disagree with. So you may have noticed that about 6 months ago, 3 months ago, I'm not sure exactly when things changed, they don't announce it. If you were a Bernie Sanders supporter, you were seeing all Bernie all the time. And if you were a Trump supporter, you were seeing all Trump all the time. And then a bit later, if you're a Bernie supporter, you're seeing a lot of the Bernie stuff, but you'll get a conservative meme snuck in there almost every time you log in. And what do? You comment. And you say, that's ridiculous. This is unsourced. Citation needed. what are you doing sharing this garbage? Snopes before you post. And then they comment back, and their friends jump in, and your friends jump in, and suddenly you got a free-for-all. Because once a couple of comments go in, it starts to notify your friends that, like, hey, fight's happening over here. Come on over and argue. This is an interesting phenomenon, because Facebook is not doing it for the betterment of mankind and for the improvement of intellectual connection. They're doing it so you're online longer, so you see more ads, and so they can get more value. But the ultimate result is that people are not just in the echo chamber, and they are seeing more contrary information. Now, unfortunately, there are some studies that say that once you have firmly planted views, seeing diametrically opposing views will cause you to entrench deeper, because then you see yourself as being accosted. So it's not very good. But actually, Steve, for example, you've been a very positive part of a number of those conversations on my own Facebook, where, especially when religious conversations, that we'll get a very diverse set of viewpoints. And fortunately, I have some friends on both sides who are willing to have civil conversations. Those are always the enjoyable ones. But there have definitely been some where I'll have someone commenting on mine, and I'll get things sometimes where it's not even a friend of mine. It's a friend of a friend who comments just, gut-wrenching, pulse in the forehead gibberish about whatever, how the communists are going to destroy America, or chemtrails, or whatever. And they try to engage with them, and it's just like, oh, and you feel yourself getting stupid. I've had to unfollow some of my own posts, and I have at times had to block some people, but I try not to do it. I try to just let the conversation roll forward. But I do believe that Facebook's algorithms are actually causing people to be exposed to a greater variety of views, and get a better, get better grounding. And so the people who are willing to have conversations might actually learn something, because suddenly Facebook's pushing them together with people who disagree with them, and they get to read. And it's interesting because you look at your own views. Obviously, you believe for a reason, and you're a good person, and some of those views are very intrinsic. We are way off of sales, marketing, networking, and social media. Well, we're in social media, I guess. But one example I like to use, just to see if I can get anyone to throw eggs at the screen, abortion is a great topic. Sarah, wondering, like, how is Michael going to end the sentence that starts with abortion is a great topic when you're talking about two different sides. So one side looks at the other and says, why do you hate women? And the other side looks back and says, why do you want to kill children? So these are, obviously, they are not starting from the same basis of information. They both think that they're fighting for good. One thinks they're fighting to save unborn lives. I mean, how can you argue with, like, saving babies? That sounds like a pretty positive thing. But then also, how can you argue with the concept of bodily autonomy, that people control their own bodies and can decide what they want to do with them? That also sounds like a pretty unarguably positive thing. Unfortunately, they're in contention, and but that's why it's a great example. And part of it comes down to where they're coming from. Most people, not all, most people, not all, who are on the pro-choice side think of life beginning at birth, and most people, not all, who are on the pro-life side think that life begins at conception, and that alone changes it, because when you're determining from one side to the other if someone's alive, if they are alive and you terminate their life, then that would be killing them. If they are not alive and you terminate them, then that would not be killing them. So with a lot of those kinds of views, you get down to that. But if you never are exposed to someone who believes the opposite view from you, then you're inclined to believe, like, why do those monsters want to kill babies? Until you actually hear them talk, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, wait, when do you think life starts? From what you're saying, it sounds like you don't think that's oh, you're not a horrible monster. Now we can discuss when life begins. And that can be what the argument is, not let's be that is very poetic. I'm not sure I entirely understand what it means. Steve says, parallel arguments always cross horns, but seldom cross minds. Which I assume is talking about how, getting the people don't often get down to the roots of what is, but the hope is that in the course of these conversations that Facebook forces to happen, because Facebook's very good at the let's you and him fight, that in the course of these conversations, you'll read it and be like, oh, okay, I see where you're coming from, and I see where you're coming from, and maybe if there was more, more data on this, because that can often happen in politics, especially talking about, tax plans and trade agreements and those kind of things. When you bring the data in, you have this data and I have that data. Let's talk about our data and talk about what the underlying concepts are. So, so that's what I have to answer that question. Any more questions? Because I only have 3 topics. Which is funny, because I think there were other things I want to talk about, but I just didn't have a chance to write them down today. So I have those 3 topics, and Steve's fantastic question. Are there any more questions from the audience that that people would like to hear about? And if not, then it's almost 9 o'clock, and that'll be the show. So, questions? Anyone? Anybody? Anybody? A couple of technical comments. So I still have this on Hangouts. I have 0 viewers on it because I think everyone's watching, because Facebook Live works way, way better than Hangouts. Hangouts has a couple of glitches, but Hangouts records directly to YouTube, which is why I'm using it. So that as soon as I hit stop broadcast, the show goes up to YouTube and is viewable. So for those who missed it, Live will also save it on my Facebook, which is a good thing. I actually realized I recorded it wrong, because I should have put this on the Michael Whitehouse training page and shared it, and I didn't do that, so it's going to be in the wrong place. So one of the interesting things about Facebook is that there are very easy to make a mistake setting something up and putting it in the wrong place. For example, the difference between pages and groups. Pages are for out-facing. They are for outreach, like marketing. Groups are for in-facing. They're for a group to communicate. And I will often see people set up pages when they meant to set up a group, when set up groups and set up a page, and then they discovered that their audience is in the wrong place and they can't move them. Kind of like this video. Oh, we have a question. Once you're offered a job, how do you determine whether a job is worth taking? That is a great question. I have no particular credentials to answer it, but I'm going to answer it anyway because I'm in front of a camera and I was asked a question. There's a couple things. First off, the question is, are there other prospects? There's a concept of negotiation called BATNA. Now we're going to see if I can remember what BATNA stands for. It's Best Alternative to Negotiated Agreement. So when you are negotiating something, you think of the BATNA, if this deal falls through, what's my backup? And is this deal better? Melissa suggested pros and cons list, which is definitely a good idea to write down, what are the pros and the cons. So some of it comes down to timing, like, do you need a job right now? And if so, being offered one, if you only have one option, probably a job worth taking. But it's really a question of what are you looking to get, and does this provide it? And it's pretty much that simple. But the trap a lot of people fall into is the money trap. Oh, this job pays so well. But there's a lot to it besides money. First, sometimes jobs don't pay as well as they seem to, especially when you're in sales. Oh, you could make as much as this, but it's structured this way. Your base pay is only actually $15,000 a year, and all the rest is commission. But we're sure you're going to make the other $80,000 in commission. You'll do fantastic. So that's part of it. But if it's a straight salary job, which I've heard about these straight salary jobs, where like they promise you a certain amount of money and they just pay it to you every week or every other week. I've heard rumors of these. I guess some people have them. Seems like a awfully boring way to have a job. You just know what you're going to get paid every week. Like, what's the point in selling stuff then? But so then you get to see upfront, but also, you know, there's factors like culture, autonomy. Are you going to get to do things the way that you want to do them? Are you going to, hello, Taylor. Are you going to hate your job? And, you know, figure out what those things are beyond money, like vacation time, schedule flexibility, control. The kind of people that you want to work with, and then you add all that up. Some people suggest putting a scoring system to it, especially if you're comparing two jobs. So, you know, for example, every day of vacation might be worth $500 a year of income. Having flexible weekends instead of not having flexible weekends might be worth $4,000 a year. That way you can add it up and say, okay, this job comes to, yeah, I get paid $50,000, but there's 25,000 more of additional benefits, versus this job pays $60,000, but there's 2,000 more of additional benefits. So, you know, monetizing it, creating numbers. So again, creating the pros and cons list, but actually putting numbers on it if you can, so that you have some way to say, and there's no way to do it exactly, to figure out exactly what it's worth, but at least the exercise of doing that will make you think like, well, how much is having my weekends off really worth? How much is a vacation day really worth? How much is autonomy really worth? How much would it take to do that? So in absence of any other information on the question, that would be my answer, is to analyze it. And then the other thing is too, once you've pinned down what it is you really want from the job, what your priorities are, if you find that it is ideal, except, you know, this would be a perfect job, but I need to leave at 3 o'clock every Thursday because I'm in Toastmasters, and I want to go to that meeting, and that's a really important group to me. And they say, well, you're going to work 9 to 5 every day. Very often, not always, but very often, the things that are very, very important to you aren't really, really important to them, and vice versa. So it may be possible to say, yeah, I'm going to stay till 5:30 every other day, but I leave at 3 on Thursday because I've got this thing, and the thing is really important to me. And I feel like, whatever, 40 hours, do whatever. Or they might say everyone's got to be there at the same time, and then you learn something about it. But very often, just asking for what you want can be effective to get you to making it even better. But also, you know, in the early stages of jobs, it's much easier to negotiate things than later on, because later on, then things have already kind of gotten settled, and so it can be a little bit trickier to ask for things to change. But that's my answer. Hopefully you like it. Hopefully it's helpful. Are there any other questions before we conclude for the evening? Anyone? Bueller? So tomorrow I am going to my WBLQ, as I always am, open for business. You can find it on WBLQ.net. My guest is, if we can make the technology work, John Palmieri, who some of you may know, talking about his business. But we're going to be pre-recording it, and oh, phone, yeah. Screw you. Oh, your connection is weak. Oh, okay. I thought saying my show was weak. It just pops up, says your connection is weak. You're like, you're weak. You're weak. Phone. Weak. So this is why I don't go longer than like 55 minutes, because then I just start being like, you phone show stuff. But yeah, so I'm hopefully going to be able to pre-record that, which is something I've not done before. So in theory, we can do this, and in theory, we can then send those files to the station. They can do it. But this is going to be a whole exciting new area. But WBLQ.net is where you'll be able to listen to us live. And by live, I mean we're recording it tonight and then broadcasting it tomorrow. And then that'll be recorded and put out as a podcast, which will be put on whitehouse.org when I get around to putting it up. So that's what's happening. All right, well, thank you all for watching. And this will be on YouTube. As always, I will post a link when I have it to Michael Whitehouse training. And if you have any questions you think of after the show is over, email them to me, and I will put them on the list to put on next week's show. Join me next week at 8 p.m. on Tuesday, where we talk about, who knows what we talk about? If I had a topic, I'd talk about it right now. So we talk about all the stuff that comes up between now and next week. Thank you very much for watching. For those of you who are in the Mystic, Southeast Connecticut area, I will be doing a sales skills for entrepreneurs and artists at the Mystic Noank Library at 7 p.m. on May 25th. It's Wednesday. It's free. You should come see me. That's all I got. I'm Michael Whitehouse. That'll do.